Sewage sludge is the consequence of the human decision to use water to carry our wastes away from home. That was, in my opinion, a catastrophic decision. It is because the sewer system, the central collection of all wastes, because it's not just human excrement and urine, it is all industrial wastes, it's all urban wastes, it's all hospitals, etc. That decision has caused the greatest amount of water pollution of any technology that human beings have created. And there's fantasies associated with understanding what's going on. People think that the treatment actually means something. The water is the wrong place to carry either human excrement or urine, for sure, but it's also the wrong place to carry all the rest of them. So the waters of the world were destroyed, the rivers, which all the waters is where the sewage went directly without any treatment for a very long time, and they became hopelessly polluted. So treatment was started, and in this country, I mean, in other countries, there was primary treatment, which just means settling and skimming of the stuff that can hold together. And so that actually, the sludge itself is not as noxious, not as dangerous, because bacterial action is not used to take out the toxins or the anything. I mean, there is no plan besides there's no idea of what is going to go into the sewage sludge besides whether something is soluble or not soluble. So that's all it is. So in this primary treatment, there was just, I say, dead cats and turds that hold together. In secondary treatment, it's a bacterial process with aerobic bacteria. Aerobic means oxygen using, in which the bacteria are pumped with oxygen because it's a very highly nutritious environment. So they will use up the oxygen. The aerobic ones would use up the oxygen immediately if it weren't replenished at the tune of unspeakable amounts of energy, constant aeration. So those lakes or whatever they are, lagoons that you see bubbling going on, is just, that's nonstop, that's round the clock. That process, which is pure bacterial action, the bacteria, let's say, eat whatever they can eat, and they can take in all sorts of toxic stuff, but it is, they don't eat the soluble stuff. They eat the insoluble stuff. So what goes out into the waters now is everything that is soluble. That is most of the nitrogen, for example, that comes from the urine, and who knows which toxins. I mean, there's a bunch of toxins that are soluble and they go into the water. Then there's a bunch that are not soluble and that the bacteria can grab and they go into the sludge. So the water is still in big trouble everywhere where this secondary treatment exists. It's not in as big trouble. It looks as if there's been an improvement, which is only a partial improvement. And it is a phony improvement because the sludge is itself such a disastrous problem. It is unusable in agriculture. Any claim, any pretense to put it on agriculture is a total fraud, and they've been working on that for at least 3 decades. EPA has promoted it. They have used the word, they call it, they compost it, they do this and that. They use the language of gardening now. When I was first involved in this whole thing, EPA said you could never use human excreta in agriculture at all. Now they're trying to force it on people in the form of the sewage sludge. So it is a disaster. The disaster is both because of the system which destroys the water, and of the system which is going to destroy the land. But now, because of PFAS, which is a newly understood toxin, only the latest one, because there's thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of chemicals that go everything. This is cheap disposal for the industrial world. The taxpayers pay for this system. The taxpayers pay for the creation of the sewering and of the treatment, both. And that is an extremely expensive process itself. I think it's 80% of the treatment of the system is in the laying of pipes, which have to be gravity fed from everywhere, from the cities, into the wastewater treatment plant. And the so-called treatment plant, it isn't really a treatment plant. It's just deciding whether to, whether to let more out and destroy the water more or destroy the land. So that's what we're facing right now. Cows are dying where people have put this on the land, and calling it, I don't know if they're not allowed to call it organic. That was one thing that was prevented, that from the beginning, whenever that was. When was the organic standard created? I think in the beginning of the 2000s, was it? Anyway, there was a fight with the industries who wanted to be able to be allowed to put sewage sludge on the land for agriculture, and that was prohibited. It was one of the three things that was prohibited. But it doesn't matter. They're putting it on land that becomes organic, or people think it's organic, and their cows are dying. So I say it is a fundamental mistake. The sewering system is a fundamental mistake. We should, and our economic system is part of that mistake, because it wants trouble, I think, this economic system. It wants to have things to fix, and it wants to throw away. The essence of our economic system is that it throws stuff away. It is truly a consumer culture, and consumer means, its first meaning is to destroy utterly. And we are destroying the water, and we are destroying the land by this system. I came to understand this whole issue because I found out about the compost toilet called the Clivus Multrum that was from Sweden in the early 1970s, in 1972, and I brought that system to this country, and I got the license to manufacture and sell it, and I have lived with it ever since. And I won't describe how it works, but the word Clivus means inclination, that means it has a slope, which is interesting, but too much to talk about right here. So what I would say is we have to back off sewers. We have to back off. We have to back everything off. And any industry that can't deal with its own so-called wastes, because we should use the word waste as a verb, not as a noun. We shouldn't be making waste. We are making waste now. We are wasting. So any industry that can't reuse its own so-called wastes shouldn't be allowed to exist. We shouldn't have those industries, because if they can't reintegrate their waste in either their industry or some other industry, they're a damage to life. They will be a catastrophe for life. So backing off, what does that mean? That means, first of all, where this all started was in the carriage of human excrement. When people didn't like having the outhouse, they had got water in their houses, and they wanted to have toilets in their houses. And but then they had to get the stuff out of the house. The question was how to do that. So they started piping it into their old outhouses and then into cesspools and then into the street and open sewers and all that, with terrible, terrible health problems. And so there are health problems with mixing human excrement in water. It causes cholera, it causes typhoid. And we've been through the phases of that, and we've stopped that by having closed sewers, but that doesn't mean we've stopped the fundamental problems associated with it, which are worse than those diseases. Because it is the destruction of the waters of the world, the nutrifying of the waters of the world. It's one of the ways that has been done. The other is, of course, with agriculture, with chemically derived nitrogen, but this is at least as big as that. So I say that, so back off. That's a project. That's a decision. That's a policy project. And it can be done, first of all, by not adding to the sewer system and by obliging corporations to deal with their own wastes, and by treating the sludge, as long as it exists, as the hazardous waste that it is. It is utterly unpredictable, unknowable. You can't ever know what is, unless you know those industries are around, but what is going to be in the sewage sludge. And so the sewage sludge, the industrial wastes, mixed with the water and with the excrement, they all ruin each other, let's say. The human excreta, which should be returned as it used to be by all land animals and to the soil. That's where it should be going. And we need systems to do that. And so there was a phrase, source separation, which I don't hear used anymore. But it's essentially the idea that you should stay as close to the source of any issue before you fix it, before you make it usable. If it's in the case of solid waste, trash, well, you have to take them to a recycling place. But of course, those are phony too. They are not really recycling much because they don't want to, because they want to make everything fresh. Those are my opinions about sewage sludge and its troubles, and my opinion about how to deal with it, which is essentially to stop making it. And eventually, so thank you for listening.